right, we're back. We're going to do another podcast. Today we are here at Titan Motorsports. So I'm with one of my buddies, and we're going to see what happens. So who are you and what do you do?
I'm Wes Bourne. Kind of handle marketing, day-to-day shop stuff here at Titan Motorsports. Been here a long time and been building cars for probably almost 2 decades now.
So kind of a while there. I think I've known you for almost 2 decades too.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I've been in the scene both as doing it for a living and how I earn my income to building my own cars, kind of behind the scenes. So
did you ever have a Supra?
Yeah, I had a Supra. It's been almost 10 years ago now. It's still a copper one. It's very similar to our Titan Supra, but the street version of it.
Almost like the iconic car from here, huh? Like that was like one of the cars.
We had two. We had the race car version, and then I built a streetable version at the same time we were racing the car. Right. Just really clinical, clean.
I remember that car from back in the day. Actually, I used to think that you were one of the owners of this place because the car was so.
No. Nero bought alone the place, and I'm just fortunate enough to work with them and kind of see out the vision.
Right. So I guess like from that marketing perspective, since kind of all these podcasts have a lot to do with marketing and stuff, just in case you're like trying to keep up, a lot of marketing, a lot of car scene stuff. So I mean, how did you branded as a Supra shop originally, right? And that was kind of your focus, or how did that?
So it originally started. Nero had a Supra and he did the street racing thing and built it himself, and then in order to start his hobby, he started selling parts out of his mom and dad's house.
Right.
About the same time, I was going to school at UCF, and there was a big car meet that used to happen, UC7 meet. The building's not even there. The parking was a movie theater across from UCF, and
I was there for the end of that.
At the time, it would fill the whole parking lot a couple nights a week, and I met Nero at that, and I was going to UCF for graphic design, and
it was like 03-ish, something like that.
01. So
that far back?
2000, 2001. Yeah. So about the time he needed a website, needed some help getting from his mom and dad's bedroom, getting it all figured out, and they just got a shop and were moving in, and I came on board then. And
quick moment of clarity on like my age here. That was the actual car meet that convinced me to turbo my first car. So yeah, I used to go out there and see all you guys with all your front mounts, and I was like, all right, I need.
At the time I was a Honda guy.
I had a Honda.
My background from 16 till when I went to college was Honda. So I was
really. I didn't know you were a Honda guy.
Yeah, when I was. Go way back, there used to be a website, the Hybrid Honda board, and it was one of the original boards about swapping your Civic. And
me and Frank were just talking about that website. We actually were like arguing about if it was hybrids.jp or hybrid.jp.
It was hybrid.
And then the dude who owned that website came onto the thing. Anyways,
there's actually a documentary movie about the whole.
Apparently that forum still exists.
It's changed a couple times, and I think the original usernames weren't there, so.
Right. Well, like that, and like NWP for life. I remember that.
Yep. So this predecessor, and if you look at, a lot of the big players in the Honda scene started on that site, as enthusiasts and built their businesses from it, and a lot of them are still around today, and others have moved on. It's kind of funny to see the people that run the companies
from when they started.
You knew them from when they had those companies, and they were just trying to swap their Civic in their garage.
I know a bunch of those dudes still. Like some of them are just actually a bunch of them are coming back to town for the IBOC meet if you're coming out for that.
Yeah, last year we hosted the pre-meet here, so it was kind of cool to see the real clean stuff, and really the theft is what kept me away from it. But
that's actually why I got out of it too. So my Integra got stolen. But so then I know you're a track guy too, so that's also when we started to become friends, when I used to see you road racing your Porsche.
Yeah. I started with BMWs and did track days, and then from there caught the bug. And
those dudes are doing a Honda track day, so you could come out. What's up?
I don't have a Honda, but maybe we'll see.
What's up? We can go get one for the weekend. We can make it happen. It's like 2 weeks away.
Yeah, so it's fun to see that side of the perspective as well. So I, got to go away from the show side to see just track days where people are just doing it for fun and for themselves, and
that's a whole different.
I stopped before I went to the professional race team as far as the road racing level goes, just because the cost to do so are so high. And
let's kind of like going back, like you guys also made a name for yourself in drag racing. So then how does that it's funny because we all have like these odd, weird backgrounds of like different things you're into.
It's like anything. If you do it every single day, you need to escape from that. So for us, we're diehard car guys. We leave here, we're all thinking about cars and doing different things. So the track day stuff was a good escape from, we're drag racing all the time. And in the early days of Nopi and NHRA, when we were racing both professionally, a lot of us would be on the road 22 to 30 days you know, a year or weekends a year at the track. So as that phased out, it kind of gave us some weekends, and the road course stuff kind of fit in to get away from it.
I know this is kind of random, but like it kind of fits into that whole mold though. But do you feel like it's better to market your stuff as a shop? Like I know this is kind of like messed up to say, like it's kind of, I guess, not PC properly to say, but like do you feel like a lot of the shops built themselves on street racing and then that kind of trickled into drag racing as like a corporate sponsorship? Because I feel like street racing is what made the name for a lot of brands, like street videos and like.
Yeah, the street scene has always been a part of it, but I think the last couple of years it's cracked down so much more than, you know,
right, of course.
A decade or 2 decades ago when we were going to Gandy, it was still unsafe. It was still, you know,
Tampa stuff, yeah,
illegal. But at some point, you know, it just got too big. You know, it went from 2 or 3 cars racing to maybe it's the internet. What changed it is everyone wanted to get the video on YouTube and be the first to have it on YouTube. So then you had more cars following you than actually racing, and that was usually what caused a problem, not the 2 guys lining up in the big power cars.
I had that struggle with an Evo race that we went out to, and I mean, we literally like 4 hours of literally trying to lose people just so that they could line up and race.
You know, in return, you've seen roll racing take off, and I think it's a lot of, you know, a lot of us as we've grown older, we now have responsibilities, we now have families, so the idea of doing it in the streets, you know, kind of takes away from that.
Yeah, light just kind of went out on us there.
Motion sensor lights.
Yeah. Anyways, hopefully it looks good on the camera still. So yeah, like how does that kind of go? Like, I mean, if we're going back out street racing and stuff, or are you just completely out of that whole scene?
Yeah, I mean, we're completely out of it. We'll still go to some of the bigger events like Texas 2K where that's prominent, but you know, we stick to the track stuff. And as a more mature brand, as your brand grows, you kind of have to take the responsible side to that.
Because I remember, I mean, even Texas UK, like you were saying, like took a hit because the internet started showing up. That became the Super. It was always kind of the Super Bowl of street racing, but then it like branded as the Super Bowl. And then I think the promoters of that event really did a good job of like transitioning the event into like a roll racing thing where like the dudes could get the racing out of their system without like doing it on the highway, which was essentially what they were doing roll racing.
And you look at cars like Underground have been able to dominate those events, and they build them, cars are built specifically for that event. And those were the same guys that were street racing a long time ago, but you know, if you've got a Lamborghini, you've got the means to afford it, you obviously have more to take if something goes wrong. And,
of course, I mean, diffs and transmissions and motor builds. And
well, beyond that, the financial repercussions of if something happens during a street race.
No, of course, you definitely get sued for a lot more if you're in a Lambo.
So for us, you know, once we started racing professionally, it all stopped. So I mean, it's been some time, and now obviously it still happens, but it's not as prevalent as it used to be, just because mainly the internet and the laws were written to where
it's way worse.
The stakes are much higher now than it was then.
Are you guys still actively competing in drag racing?
Yeah, we've gotten to a point where fortunately we have customers that want us to run their own cars.
Mm-hmm.
Our house cars, we've got the Copper Supra, which we're actually in the process of rebuilding now. But we've been lucky to where we've kind of moved to a customer support basis the past 3, 4, 5 years, where we build the cars for the customers, we run them for the customers, and support them. And it takes up a good majority of our time and kind of fills a need to do the R&D and testing.
You guys do like road race prep also, like you guys show up and then you have your own crew that takes care of the car while they race.
Exactly. So they'll pull up, our crew runs it, you know, our driver can run it. Mm-hmm. When they're done, the engines can come out, come here, get serviced, and
kind of go the whole 9 yards.
And it's gotten to the point where we'll have people buy race cars, deliver them here, we'll retrofit them, have everything converted. They can either take them and run them on their own, which has happened with some teams, and we'll support them via parts, or we have full support packages. So. And
then getting away from Supras, you guys also do GTRs and Lambos and like high dollar bills as well. Like, I mean, that's kind of where you guys fall in now.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope, because as our shop got more popular, the amount of clients that we brought in was much higher than what we could, you know, really handle with as much space as we have. And we've got a pretty big building. So we had to be more selective about the jobs that we want to take on. And it's a good problem to have, because we're able to pick and choose the projects that we want to build and build them to our standards and our way.
Of course. And like
some people see the downside of it. Obviously, we'd love to build every single car, but there's people that, you know, can't get in our cars we won't work on. And it's not that we don't want to work on the cars. It's just the amount of resources it takes doesn't fit what we're trying to do. So now we stick to a couple key marks and kind of specialize in them.
And then just put out quality stuff so no one has anything.
Yeah, and it's allowed us to build it our way. You know, I mean, one of the main things I think has been like Jdm Swaps. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of people that'll swap a 2J into your 240 and, you know, a used engine from Japan, but we're kind of more the specialists, so when you do it with us, we're going to take a brand new engine from Toyota, brand new cylinder head, either build it from there or use all original parts because we know we can stand behind it.
And you guys bought out all the transmissions from the...
we try to, and
right.
Truthfully...
try to get them all before they go, you know?
We had the vast majority of them at the end, and, you know, the extreme prices, a lot of people stockpile them, and now that's opened a whole nother market for increasing the price of the cars, and also now it's allowed these transmission swaps to happen for 2Js and for other people, so it's kind of...
So I kind of have a question about like kind of like fitting into that mold of like, you guys build a lot of high dollar cars, but you still want to attract like the younger audience because eventually the younger audience becomes the high dollar builder or somewhere in that realm. So like how do you balance the two? Like, whereas your open house attracts a straight wide demographic of like literally like children all the way through the high dollar enthusiast, and like how do you kind of balance that out? Or
it's a tough balancing act. Like I said, you know, we get calls all the time for cars that they want us to work on them, or it's a project that's been somewhere else and for us to take it on. And it's not that it's a low-end build or that we don't respect what the person's doing with it. It's just not our specialty, so it's going to take more time, more resources. So we don't, you know, we don't do Hondas here really anymore. We don't do even Evos anymore. It's just got to the point where it's not in our specialty and wheelhouse. And we have so many Supras and GTRs lined up that it's a 3 to 4 month waiting list. So the good news for that is our main business is parts distribution. So the whole half side of the building is a call center with it's about 15,000 square feet of inventory, and we stock parts from Hondas, Evos, you know, all makes and models, and we try and, you know, attract that demographic through that side of the business. So while our shop doesn't service them on the installation, we're able to supply the parts so that they can either do it themselves or support their shop that's doing the builds.
Wholesale as well.
Yeah, we do wholesale as well. So we're able to keep inventory so the smaller shops can service that clientele and not have a huge wait. So I mean, if you look on the racks, there's everything from Honda pistons to ARP hardware for a jet ski in there. So I mean, we really target anything and everything along the line.
You're also the Porsche guy too, so that's another clientele that you've pulled, and you're the RWB guy for the Central Florida area. So that attracts, I think, a younger and a middle ground crowd too.
Yeah, so. I fell into Porsches from going to track days, and truthfully, the reliability of it is kind of what drove me to that make. I wanted something high end that it kind of fit the mold of what a tuner car is, and it brought me to other Porsches at the same time. So the RWB thing kind of happened organically. One of the guys I was driving track with was Tampa car number 5, and RWB Japan posted up, hey, US car number 5's coming, and I look in the background and there was a hood to my friend's race car, so I called him up and said, you know, Chad, are you building an RWB? And he goes, well, yeah, I am. And at the time, it hadn't really hit the US yet in terms of the vast marketing of it, and he just found out about it and invited me to watch the build. And at the time, it was just me, him, and Nakai, and a couple guys in a small shop in Tampa, and we kind of hit it off and watched it happen. So Nakai gave me his business card, and I just held it close to my chest. And when the time came, I had a client, Joseph, who wanted it done, and he had, you know, trouble getting the right contacts throughout it, and we kind of put that together.
So if you guys haven't realized yet, this is the guy you need to call if you want RWB builds in Florida or anywhere in this area. He's the man.
Yeah, I mean, we do Central Florida.
He's the man behind it, even though he's humble and doesn't want to say it. He's behind the scenes of every Porsche build here. So
if we don't build it, I like to help in it, and you know,
you get a free skateboard with it.
Yeah, and you know, there's other guys in Florida doing them now. Fortunately, it's grown since then, and Park House, Al and Sunil and those guys at Park House, they're doing a killer job in Miami. And Florida's a big enough state that, you know, we can spread the love. And
that's like a whole different world down there. Like South Florida, like in Central Florida, like two different.
No, it really is. But you know, we get along with those guys and hung out with them at SEMA and travel quite a bit to these events and see each other. And we're kind of the East Coast people at those events. So it's kind of nice to team up on that front. So
kind of going into like the RWB stuff, like a little bit kind of a weird transition there, but they do like kind of owners meets and exclusive stuff, and we've always spoken about that, about doing like kind of high end exclusive meets and like. Really like
in Japan, I mean the Idlers Club is kind of where it all started, is a track day group for them to track the cars, and the US is so spread out that it hasn't really taken on that same thing yet in a real life event. You know, there'll be some groups where there's 5 or 10 of them, but I think now there's somewhere around 70, 80 cars in the US, so geographically it's harder to bring all of them together. But there's an online chat room that most of the owners and builders are kind of a part of.
Do you think we could do that with different cars though? Having like almost like a idlers type, like, you know, like here we're all going to get together. We're going to.
I think the potential's there, and you know,
the exclusivity of it.
The hard part is the internet. To keep things exclusive, the first couple events it would stay exclusive, and then once people caught wind, it would outgrow itself to the point where it wouldn't be that tight, you know, knit exclusive group. So that's kind of the balancing act of how do you keep it owner's focus or a small enough niche. You know, there's enough cars and coffee events. Any given weekend you can throw a stone and there's going to be 10 events, especially within an hour or two, you know, drive from here. So how do you take that and make it special to make it not so much about the cars, but more about the people?
We've always talked about doing like events. Me and you actually have talked about this. About doing events where no one was allowed to bring cell phones, no one was allowed to bring cameras, like nothing like that, and they were exclusive to the point of like non-existent. Like you just, if you went, you went. If you didn't, you didn't.
Yeah, you know, I think it'd be a cool thing to take the ego aside. You know, where you're going to an event, not how much money you have, not what type of car you have, just because you have like-minded passions, and kind of take away the E-frame trying to get Instagram famous. And I think that there's some potential for that. I just actually went to a Joe Rogan show, and they had he made you put your cell phone in a lock pocket, and they magnetically locked it, and the whole show nobody could have their cell phones. And it really made you appreciate the show. And you know, it's kind of opened the door to, you can't really do the cameras, but you know, what if you could have smaller events that are more boutique, to where it's about the people. You know, it's about sitting and having conversations, and cars is the main focal point, but not so much that it's, let me take a picture of every single car and post them all in a row on Instagram to try and get more likes.
Right, of course. I mean, that's how everybody does. I mean, that's almost essentially killed blogs. Like, blogs were like, we used to go, like me personally, I would go to car shows and everybody'd come out and they'd be like, oh, I want to go to V2 Lab to get like a picture of my car. Now, like, you go on the event page and there's 1,000 cell phone pictures of every single car that you've seen at the show, and you're like, I didn't even need to go to the show, or this watered down the traffic, or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of, it's a transition that's going to be difficult and weird for the car group. Is when I was growing up, we had forums, and everyone just kind of would post their builds as they were building it and what was happening, figuring things out in their forum threads, and people became friends of the forums. And I, you know, made friends across Florida, and you would go to smaller meets at that forum. And now Facebook has kind of killed that group, but it just shows up in your feed. It's another part of your daily feed of stuff.
We've kind of gotten to that point where like Facebook is almost like there's such a generation gap. Like now, like the younger kids always kind of go towards like Instagram and Snapchat, and then like the older, like it's becoming an older crowd on Facebook now, and then like there's a Twitter crowd obviously, and then there's like everybody's so split up now. Like,
well, it's hard to find the info. It's easier to find the pictures of things,
right?
But you know, you go on Instagram, and you know, most of the older people on Instagram too, because it's easy. It's Facebook without the clutter, and I love Instagram. It's probably the one I'm on the most. But in terms of replacing the forums, Facebook's group has done a good job. But it's lost all the technical articles, the how-tos, the problem threads, you know, whereas if you had a boost pipe pop off, you know, it used to be, oh, we'll do this and this will fix it and this is what happened to me. No. You don't find that on Facebook anymore. So when you do a Google search, that doesn't show up. So I think in turn it's limited, you know, the growth of the do-it-yourself type of thing for really extreme stuff.
And then do you feel like the build quality has changed over the years, or do you like, how's that kind of going?
You know, everyone always jokes at car shows it's airbags and wheels, and you know, maybe it's changed. Not that that's such a bad thing. Newer cars are harder to work on. It's brought new people into the demographic, but kind of the old style where you wouldn't see a build till it was complete, and there was kind of a build up to it. That seems like it's gone.
Right.
Every car show we go to, it's the same car. Somebody might change their wheels. The car show isn't special. There's not people unveiling it. You know, nobody's building their car for an OP Nationals like it used to be, where you'd spend 6 months building a car just to debut it and it'd be not seen. Now it's the whole process is on Instagram, and you know, even SEMA, before the show even starts, I fly out, I'm looking, and there's every car that's there is a full thread, and it's good because you can go find those cars, but it's bad because it kind of takes away some of that part of seeing the show.
Then you got the people who rush to post it on Instagram first.
Yeah, yeah.
Before the show, like days before the show starts, they're like in the lobby, like.
Yeah, and I think it's good and bad. It's great to see it's there, you know, and SEMA's such a big show that you want to have some help finding what you're looking for. But at the same time, it's taken the element of surprise out of it. And even for us with our shop, we have clients that want to remain private or want to remain anonymous, and it's become really hard to create content when you have a car in the background that nobody's supposed to know about, or nobody's supposed to know what you're doing about, you know, doing to it. And you take a picture on Instagram, or somebody drives by and takes a picture, and there's that client's car who wasn't supposed to be there or wasn't supposed to be built,
right.
you know, there for the world to see. So
kind of a weird like hit or miss situation where you're kind of like the secrecy is gone, or the
So
I mean, I kept my car a secret, the color of my car a secret for 9 months almost.
And you know how hard that is to do, you know.
I mean, I was getting pictures of it from people. They were like, "Oh, I'm by the shop. I stopped by." I'm like,
so on one hand, it's harder to be original, but then I also feel like some people are trying too hard to be original because of that.
Right.
You know, you go to shows and you see things that you're just like, they just did that to stand out or to try and get.
I feel like that's where we're kind of at right now with the Instagram stuff. I mean, like, the problem is that people are really into the idea of instant gratification. I mean, that's kind of like what Bitcoin was when Bitcoin blew up. It was the instant gratification of a quick return on your investment. And so I think people do that, like in the car scene, where they like do something, they get a whole bunch of likes, then a week later the likes start dwindling, and they're like, what's the next extreme thing I can do? And I think that's kind of where
I think too many people are trying to use cars and car shows as a way to become popular, as a way to gain friends.
Right.
And I've talked to clients about this and just said, you know, be friends with people that are like-minded. You know, I'm friends with people that have Porsches because it's what I enjoy doing. Most of them are going to track days. Most of them are doing certain things that are similar to my, you know, taste. So when I see somebody, you know, goes and buys a 350Z and thinks they immediately have to be friends with every single 350Z owner in town, or, you know, if this person has this type of wheels, I need to be friends with everyone that has the same type of wheels. Just because they have the same asset as you doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have the same likes, come from the same lifestyles.
I feel like those groups are very toxic. Like the niche groups, like
yeah, and you see people come and go from them very quickly. You know, whereas, you know, friendships where we have very little in common, met in a parking lot, you know, because we both were into cars, but we can shoot photography ideas, we can shoot, you know, printing, design ideas off of each other, and it's created secondary friendships outside of cars. And I think that's kind of what's lacking in the community is everyone wants to get to an event as quickly as possible, take photos, and be the first post on Instagram. When the event ends, that's when the real event happens, when you can be like, hey, how you doing? How's your family? You know, what's going on in business, and talk. And a lot of deals happen you know, at those times, not on Instagram.
I feel like there's the disconnect of that now. Like, a lot of people don't know how to make business from shows, like, or even forge real friendships. I think a lot, like, I mean, even what you said, like, all the car shows I go to now, everyone shows up super early, does whatever they're going to do, and then leaves super early.
Yeah.
Because they're like, I have to go home and like.
And as someone putting a show on, that's the hardest part. You want to try and keep. It causes two problems. First, you have 8 million people showing up at your facility early on, and then as the event tapers off, you're left with all this open space. So you have to try and figure out, all right, how do I fill the space to where it's going to be used efficiently, but still get the people to attend.
So then, how can I get you guys to start attending more shows, like car show stuff, as a vendor?
You know, for us, the hardest part is there are so many events.
Mm-hmm.
We're diverse. We do racing. We do our own shows. We travel to some of the larger events. And there's only so many weekends a year, and there's only so much staff. You know, obviously, 5 days a week, this is our life. And then when you add in Saturday and Sunday, it can take its toll on you. So we try and pick and choose which shows we do. And we try and add new things to the mix each time. So if we do a show 5 years in a row, at the 5th year we may say, you know what, in order to get the same results, we need to be somewhere else. So maybe we'll go to a show in Miami that we've never done. And do that for a year or two and see how it works out.
Because I've started to notice a decline in performance shops showing up to car shows over the past few years. And whereas, like, I feel like there's an influx of people selling vinyl stickers and like nonsense items, like stuff that anybody can buy on eBay or whatever. And then like the dudes that are really doing it, like putting together like custom parts or really building stuff, like aren't showing up to car shows or anything like that. And I mean, it kind of goes back to the bags and wheels build, that kind of like idea. But like, in order for those same kids to get an idea of like what they could do, those other people have to show up too. You know what I mean? So
and it's a tough battle for us to fight, because the other side of it is we're a business.
Right.
If we're going to spend, you know, thousands of dollars to vend an event, for us, we don't see an immediate return. We sell T-shirts and stickers and things. You know, we're not going to go to a car show and sell you a turbo kit on the spot and you're going to take it home.
Right.
At least for us. There are shops that, you know, they might sell a steering wheel, but truthfully, that's always on the lower end from what I've seen. Mm-hmm. Nobody's going to buy the Momo Prototipo wheel with the stitching color they want at a car show. Right. You know, they're going to go buy the cheaper steering wheel that matches their car, that they don't care about the build quality, they just want it because they want one more thing in their car. Right. And you see people, you know, when you drive around, you see it, they all have the same colored lug nuts, they have the real trailing arm on the Hondas, and they have things that they bought at car shows on impulse. We don't really sell that, so for us, it's got to be a more long-term purchase for the person. And
I think, you know, like, but also like planting the seed is also a good thing too.
And that's a secondary problem. When you become a legacy brand, I try and tell people, for us, we've been doing this so long that when Titan shows up to an event, everyone expects it to be something huge. Mm-hmm. So if we can't show up with a 20 by 10 tent and 2 or 3 of the baddest cars in the show, Titan's falling off. Right, you know, and it might just be that we're busy that weekend, or you know, we had a family event. So it's
race cars were elsewhere, you know,
and that happens too. You know, there's weekends where we have had the cars are testing somewhere, the semi and the trailer there with race cars, and then the same time as Orlando Speed World's having a huge event with 15,000 people, there's a car show on the other side of town, and we'll try and attend. You know, we'll try and attend that. Maybe we don't then, but we normally attend things as enthusiasts. You know, more so than anything, more times than not.
So, what's your favorite kind of event to go to?
You know, I'm older now. I have a family, so I like those low key events, kind of where it's, I don't want to say cars and coffee, but where it's just more chill, where people can hang out. The real big stuff I don't really get to go to as much anymore.
Right.
But the more thought out stuff, that's kind of what I enjoy. Lately, because I'm into Porsches, it's been a lot more Porsche events.
Like the Ace Cafe ones.
Yeah, so I'll go to Ace Cafe, and that's kind of become a ritual. Just it's nice to go there for the Porsche stuff. And I just did Das Renntreffen in Miami. That was a great event that was well prepared, and some collectors brought us some really impressive stuff. So, you know, trying to attend, I have to be more selective with my time now, so I try and pick and choose events, and I'll do them each year. My favorite event, though, is probably outside of the realm of most of us, and it's the Rolex 24 Daytona. I've been doing it every year for 12, 13 years now.
Do you camp also?
Yeah, I camp, tent camp, so everything goes in my front of my Porsche, and it's been that way for the past couple of years. My tent, my sleeping bags, and I've got everything compact where it fits.
Got a plan, a system.
And that's kind of, to me, that's the best of both worlds, because most enthusiasts go there who are true track enthusiasts, are really into the performance side of cars. Mm-hmm. But then you're also watching a race go on, and then at night when things wind down, you're at the racetrack, which is great. The cars are going around, and it's kind of like a lullaby for us, you know, extreme car guys.
Right, and you're also building a miniature Porsche.
Yeah. I started doing the Power Wheels for my kid, but like most good dads,
we're gonna have a whole feature on this thing because it's just that ridiculous.
Yeah, so I think I first saw when Kid Stance was doing it, and mad props to him. He kind of started a lot of us on it, but I had a Power Wheel monster truck growing up, and you want to get your kids kind of what you're into, but let them pick your own path. So we were building Joseph's car. Power Wheels came out of the GT3, and of course I had to buy it. At the time, Marla was probably 9 months or a year old. Now she's getting to the point where she can almost drive it, and it's done. And now I need another project, so I built that one too low. So now I'm going to be building another one that she can drive wherever. So she's going to have her daily driver one and show car, like a proper spoiled
daily driver Porsche for the 2-year-old. Yeah,
it's the 2-year-old that can say Porsche, you know, and points them out on the road. So I'm kind of proud of that on that front.
I think we're gonna have to do like a full walk around of this thing because it's ridiculous. He just also 3D printed some stuff, and
yeah, I'm building a Safari one. So the cool thing with that is it's toys, and it's opened me up to this design and development kind of for a different purpose, but it's got me interested in kind of the build side of things.
Do you feel that's growing in the scene too now, or how do you feel about that side of things?
Yeah, in some ways, and in other ways not. Like, I feel the fabrication side is really taken off, which is awesome to see people get into the fabrication. Drifting's probably helped with that. I think we could still have more of it, but you know, companies like Vibrant offering products that you can fabricate your own stuff, and guys learning to weld, and you know, I think that's coming back, which is awesome. More people doing their own things. I
think there's been appreciation for really nice welds that came from social media.
Yeah, weld porn and you know, fab this, and it's cool to see that. And even our welders will be posting stuff that they've done and they're proud of. And I think that's opened up that market for that. But your average guy isn't doing it still, and there's not really any outlets, you know, to learn that like there used to be.
Yeah. Oh, we gotta do like a little camera check real quick. You know, stop it and start it again. Good. So we had to like do that because we were having a little bit of issues with the Adamus recorder, but whatever. Anyways, just kind of back into it though. But yeah, I've been seeing a lot of people really like hyped on really nice welds. So it's like kind of pushed a lot. Like I've even been talking about learning how to weld because I'm like, oh, I really want to get into this. I really want to learn how to like specifically get down a really nice weld that doesn't look like a booger weld, or you know what I'm saying? Like just get into that. And then I think like with the turning of like the YouTuber, like the YouTubers, this is kind of funny. The YouTubers have been forced into learning how to do everything so that they don't get called posers or don't get called so they've had to learn how to weld, they've had to learn how to build their own cars, had to learn every little bit of cars in almost a compressed amount of time to show their audience that they're not like a fake enthusiast.
But that's awesome.
So then it's causing them to learn how to weld, and you're watching it happen. You're like, man, like I want to learn this.
And a lot of people hate on that, and that's the part of the market that I would rather see enthusiasts go learn something and just one craft and be able to bring that to other enthusiasts. And that's the true way to forge really good bonds in a tight-knit community. That's not happening as much as it should. Everyone wants to be a car spotter, and you see a Pagani drive down the road and there's 30,000 kids taking the same picture. And to them, they're hanging out with a rich guy and they think that maybe somewhere along the line it's going to spill off to them.
Right.
The motivation for it, I don't know, but I feel like, the weld thing's taken off, but you don't see guys as enthused about learning interiors.
Right.
You don't see guys as enthused about learning paint and body as much anymore. It's more limited, but to build a whole car, you need each of those pieces.
There's a very, very, very small demographic of people on my Facebook friends list that are doing body work, that are custom building metal fenders and really doing stuff. So and it's funny because it's almost still in the stance community, but they're pushing the boundaries of like one of the kids on my friends list, he literally cut up M3 fenders the other day and widened them out, and the car looks like a factory car until you're like,
no,
oh.
and there needs to be more of that. And it's cool. It's how to show the process. YouTube's helped us, but not everyone wants to go through showing what they've done on YouTube because, truthfully, they're afraid of failing. And
right.
I'm a victim of it. I've learned a lot and taught myself a lot, but I don't like showing the process because, what if I did something wrong? And really, we need to become more often that we make mistakes. And even on the highest level, shops make mistakes, and it's about fixing those and owning up to it. And there's not a lot of that right now, but there needs to be.
There's a lot of people who don't want to own their own mistakes. You know what I mean?
You see it across, with a build, and they're easy to make excuses instead of just doing it right the first time.
I mean, even with this stuff, it took me a year to post my first video on the internet. I was literally afraid of what people were going to say because I had already built a reputation around being a photographer and this and that. And I was like, if my video work sucks, people are literally going to criticize me. And then when I finally got into making videos, people were like, oh, you're growing, you're getting better. It's it's not.
No, and that's the same thing with me. I spend so long researching something before I build it, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Learning something before you build instead of you slap it together and then you're constantly fixing it. Right. And car builds need to happen that way too.
I think that's a big part of it.
So many people build, they'll do some small part and then another part, whether it's financially motivated or everyone just wants to have it now. And then they end up fixing those repercussions later on down the road. And I think that's kind of where the scene has failed, where now it's cool to have a stance car that the fenders are all banged up and the wheels are sticking out, not because you didn't take the time to measure offset, but because you think it became cool because somebody else posted something like that and you want to stand out.
Then there's also that financial mistake of it now that credit at all of these shops is so widely available. I think it's Snap financing or something like that. They do they have an insane interest rate if you don't pay off these wheels or whatever they are, and people are buying with lack of a better word, junk products on a high interest rate, and they're building cars because it's an instant gratification.
Yeah, and unfortunately at the same time they've taken a car that was worth something and a lot of times made it to where, some of them are actually ruining the cars because they're driving it too low and smashing the frame rails, and it's cool to be static, but if you had air ride, you wouldn't have the whole underside of your car just completely destroyed.
I watched a dude the other day on Facebook Live. They literally couldn't tow his car. He was doing a burnout and he blew up his diff right in front of everybody, which is even worse. It sucks to fail in front of everybody. And then they couldn't get the tow truck driver was there putting go jacks under his car. They couldn't get the car up the the tow truck.
And at some point we've made it cool to look at the train wreck and watch a train wreck happen. But again, it's a short-term gain. That same person, look at how many likes I got for that. Well, you made an ass of yourself. And
now you're stuck.
Now you're stuck, and now you have a broken car, and everyone's going to know that car. Yeah, when you go to a car show, they're going to know that you're that asshole that got it stuck there by doing burnouts. And
right.
I found that's never going to get you to the next level.
I feel there's that big issue of people mistake negative attention for love. There's positive, negative, and then there's just any attention is not always good attention. And people don't realize that has long-term effects on everything.
People come here and apply, and we realize some stupid thing they've done ages ago, and it's it always comes back to haunt you. Or people come, yo, how do I get a fucking job here, yo? And it's That's not the type of client we're dealing with.
Right.
So why would we hire you as that?
We make jokes, but like we see a bunch of really bad sponsorship proposals, and I mean people have started like sending like some of these dudes that like I know that are like creative directors of other major companies, and like, yo fam, how do I get sponsored? And you're like, did you really send this out as a professional? Like you literally thought this was going to work?
My inbox gets filled with them, and I take the high road and don't post them, but I do appreciate people that do post it, and I kind of get a laugh at them because I've seen the same thing, and
I'm sure you've seen some terrible ones. I mean, like,
again, it's a return on the investment. In order to sponsor somebody, they're going to have to bring you more than what you gave them.
Of course, people don't understand that like sponsorship's not just free parts; it's a literal two-way street.
Yeah, for us, it needs to be R&D, and there's a point where years ago we learned, hey, it's cheaper and easier if we have full control of the process, and we can go sponsor a car, or we can go buy that car, do a full development on it, test it, either sell the car when we're done or keep it. And in over 20 years, we built a pretty nice fleet of stuff that we've appreciated by doing just that.
Of course, I mean that shows in like literally your reputation in like the cars that are.
Yeah, and we have partners, that have come along the ride with us as sponsors of our program. That when we get a new car, they'll help us develop parts, but in return, they get the R&D with it, and they're able to sell parts that we use, and we'll sell them for them.
So like, out of all of those, what's your favorite car that you've helped R&D and build? Like, what's been your like greatest take back?
I've done a lot of cars that it's tough. The Copper Super's been fun because like now we're rebuilding it again, and each time I've seen the progression to where. When I started, it was a black shell in the corner of the shop off a goldenrod, and now it's going back to where it's going to be a little bit more insane.
So it's going to be like a 2,000 horsepower car, or is it?
It'll be more than that, and we finally converted from the independent rear suspension. We're doing a solid rear axle, and it got to the point where we really couldn't race with the import guys anymore. Our cars became fast, and if you look at the wall of trophies, you'll see that we won some races. So as NHRA folded, we had to go race domestic guys. So
of course,
this car is going to kind of let us go out and run with those outlaw guys and take what we've learned on the really high-end cars, the full chassis cars, and kind of scale it back down too.
So does that weird you out? Like 10 years ago, like 1,000 horsepower was like amazing, and now all of a sudden it's like.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at a race car in 2001, it was on the cover of Turbo magazine making 949 horsepower, and that was huge. And now we're at 2,950 horsepower.
Right.
You learn a lot along the way, and it's hard because it's condensed of 20 years of your life. And you ask what you're doing 20 years ago, we've forgotten so many steps along the way that got us there.
I mean, it's crazy just to see the progression of the scene. I mean, I remember watching the Texas 2K stuff, and people were dropping GTRs. They're like, oh, this dude just made 1,800. Oh, this dude just made 1,900. Oh, some guy up north made 2,300, and then there's like the mystery dyno where this car's just coming, and they're like,
yeah. And then when you get the track, you would see it. But the cool thing about it is to see the progression and know we've done a lot over that space. And now the 2J has become kind of like the small block Chevy of the import world. It's put us in a good position because we're able to support it and offer parts. But we also have seen the failures along the way. I mean, we've blown up more 2Js than anyone, and
of course,
that's not something we're going to hide. I mean, we've pushed the limits and fixed parts, so now the entire thing is built except for a couple bolts on the idler pulley, I think, and it's and the coil packs, and it's fun in some ways. We see people that are newfound 2J experts do something, they're like, oh, well, I know what that happened, but you can't outright tell them, or
right.
If they ask you, you'll tell them.
Right. There's a billet 2J right beside the camera. That's why he looked over there. So
yeah, I mean, it's
literally sitting in the showroom.
And for me, if you told me it was going to go to that, I wouldn't know. So.
It's been interesting to see that progression. I mean, even the Evo guys have gotten to that same billet block, same kind of like realm of like that 4-cylinder making like 1,400 horsepower now, and then people are like normal about it. They're like, oh yeah, like you're not in the 1,000 horsepower range. Like
I think that's the downside of it. I think it's caused this secondary thing, and maybe it's partially YouTube, where everyone expects that they're going to go build 1,000, 1,200, 1,300 horsepower Supra and daily drive it like it's their Camry. And we try and explain to clients that that's fun in a track environment, or if you're going to be doing, half-mile events, illegal stuff on the street. Yeah, every now and then you're going to get a pull, but the general use of the car, I've always found the cars we build that are 600, 700, 800 horsepower with good mid-range, those are the most fun cars ever to drive. So the downside is that, it needs to make 2,000 horsepower, and we have clients come in and stroke a check and want 2,000 horsepower.
Do you feel like that's a little bit of the disconnect and like almost the gap now, like from what we used to be back in the day? Like back in the day, like you'd go to a car show, you'd street race on the way there, you'd street race on the way home, you'd kind of like do a little bit of everything. Now there's this disconnect where like the dudes that are serious about racing make too much power, and then the dudes like in the shows are so extreme in the show stuff that they can't even like. Yeah, and they both don't hang anymore.
You know, you're always limited to the tire, and that's the thing people forget. You know, you'll see people, they want big power, they always skimp on tires, or they always skimp on brakes. And those are the two most, or suspension, the two most important things. I mean, no matter how much power you're making, most times it's being transmitted to the ground through a contact patch the size of a piece of paper.
Right.
So you have to take that into consideration and build an all-around car that's going to take advantage of that weight transfer in those contact patches. And yeah, you can have traction control, but all that's doing is taking your 1,000 horsepower and neutering it to 600. So why not just have 600 with a really good mid-range that's responsive? And I think that hopefully now the OE numbers are getting high. Some companies have finally said, all right, enough's enough. You know, a Hellcat is great in a straight line. It goes, a Demon goes 9s or 8s now, and that's cool. And then you try and take a corner and it won't turn.
Well, it's got like little baby tires in the front too to go with it.
You know, at the same time, a Civic Type R is as fast as a Ferrari was a decade and a half ago. So we've seen new performance, but more people need to kind of have a quest for that all-around performance.
Right. I think we're missing a lot of that in the scene, just in general, where people like really go one way or another in extreme directions. You know, like there's that it's so many things, man. Like I think like
it's a big problem. You know, the barrier to entry for a road course is, you know, not expensive, but it's the path to get there is outside of most people's means.
Right.
Or they don't understand they can be easy. You don't have to go straight to Sebring and try and, you know, build a race car. You can go do autocrosses. You can kind of step your way into it. Whereas a car show, you can just enter and show up and you're there.
I always tell people like building a chump car is always like a good idea if you want to get into like road racing and kind of like in that realm of things.
Or you can rent a seat, you know, and the reality is like you can rent a seat with a team, build friendship through that, and don't have to build the car, don't have to store it. And while it's expensive, the initial cost, the end cost, none of us ever want to add up what we truly have into our cars.
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not.
So I mean, the amount of money you spend versus how much you use it just becomes a.
Of course.
And I made the mistake. I had a 1,100 horsepower Supra, and as soon as it was done, I drove it once or twice a month and looked at it, and I said, you know, can sell it now and get into a Porsche that I could drive every day, and that's kind of what started for me.
So you never got rid of the Supra though. It just always stayed with you, even though like you went to the Porsche.
No, I sold it. I had both for a little while, but then I sold the Supra, and it went up north and got mothballed, and I think now it's in New Mexico. And I've seen pictures, and it's.
So it's a different Supra that you're building now, right?
It's in half the condition. The Supra we're building in there that's the original street car. I had the street car version. Nero had the race car version. The street car version's gone on, but the car we're building now is the car Nero used to street race 20 years ago. So.
Jeez. So that car just was in there in the back corner hanging out.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably on its third or fourth build, and each time, you know, we built it for class racing. When those went away, we changed some things, and then we started running, you know, other programs like eCanoe's car and things like that. So
we need to see a Titan drift car soon. Gotta get you out there. You gotta come slide with us.
You know, we have almost done it on the Formula D level multiple times.
You don't need to go that high.
We've had discussions with people and run a team, and I think, you know, that's a whole nother discussion to have, where some people are turned away by drifting becoming so professional, but their drivers are earning their living that way. The rest of the field needs to be the same level as guys like JR. So when we were going to go on, we wanted to run a level like we did in drag racing. And the numbers didn't line up, the teams, certain things didn't happen, and we haven't done it, but you never know.
Never know. It might be in the works in case you want to send Wes a sponsorship proposal or driver proposal. If you're an amazing driver. And
we've got a semi-truck. I mean, the truth is, if you take a 3,000 horsepower 2J and water it down, it works quite well for drifting, and we support a lot of those guys behind the scene. The parts side I talked about, you know, we have a lot of professional level that buy parts from us, and we support them through that, whether we have a sticker on the car or not. So
of course, I mean, just that's essentially like the formula right now anyways. Like you build a monster motor, and then you like just dumb it down.
And you make it last, you know.
Yeah, so you just dumb it down real hard. And then,
the stuff we've learned from this, the dry sump that works for drag racing is the same dry sump setup you're going to put on a drift car, and some of the pros are running our stuff.
Of course. So I have a question, you know. So how can somebody? We lost light again. How can we not suck in the scene? You know, just as a whole, like your advice as an OG.
Just control your ego.
Yeah, that's
the biggest thing is you got to be in this because you truly want to be in cars. Truly passionate about it. Go to sleep thinking about it, and just build the best thing you can build, associate yourself with people that are like-minded, and people that push you to build better.
Yeah.
When you go to a show and you see something, just constantly strive for that perfection for your own self. In the end, you'll find it's more fun.
So I think there's that same thing you just said, like strive for perfection. There's a lot of lack of that. Like attention to detail.
Attention to detail is key. That's why I've never done car shows personally, because nobody's looking at the fact that you spent 8 hours polishing the frame rail before you painted it. Mm-hmm. If you got the ugly body kit from Japan, that's going to score more points with the judges and having extra stuff versus having the less is more mentality. And I've always gone back to that. It's kind of filters when it's cool to see motorsport harnesses and wire tucks and things, but to me, my aesthetic has always been that less is more. And I'd like to see the car scene become more about that, like not trying to immediately build a car and go as quickly as you possible to the finish line, but like enjoy the process and build it up slowly and have a purpose early on, instead of just coming out of the gate and expecting of everything. Like, take the time and do the research before you show up at a shop and want everything. Have a game plan, have a vision, have some ideas for cars. When people build houses, they don't just go build a house. They say, oh, I like this aspect, that aspect. I want my closet like this and this. I feel like cars, everyone just expects to throw it all together and put it in a pile.
You also don't jump from house builder to house builder for one to do half the work and the other to do the other.
No, and that's a problem. Is the eBay mentality is everyone wants to get the cheapest parts, the cheapest product, and they don't want the cheapest support. They want to buy it from another shop and then call us when it's blown up, or bring it here and want us to immediately jump on it. We're fortunate we have enough clients that we've built a reputation with over the years that, hey, you want to build something, we'll go outside of our normal comfort zone to build something for people that we have an existing relationship with. But if we don't have a relationship with you and you show up with some crazy project idea at no budget, there's really not much we can do.
It's always quality over quantity too.
Yeah,
so.
and that's put us in a position where luckily the cars that come out of here most of the time, it's been our vision, that our customers help us bring to fruition, and in the end they get a car that they really enjoy.
Of course, and you want them to drive it
and
hopefully enjoy driving it, and then keep it.
I don't want to build a car that's 1,500 horsepower. That guy sits in his garage and just tell him he has 1,500 horsepower. I want to see somebody out really enjoying the car, taking it a drive, sorting it out, and when we do that, problems are going to happen. We're going to R&D things along the way and try and push the boundaries. And for big shops like us, the point is to be able to stand behind our work.
Of course, go drive your cars. So we'll kind of wrap that up a little bit and kind of wrap up this whole thing. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to give a shout out to something that doesn't suck or someone that doesn't suck. Give someone some props.
Oh man. Probably there's a guy on Instagram I'm following. I think he works out west at a hot rod shop, but his Instagram has 3D Magic Mike, and him and Garrett Wade over at BC. I've really taken on this kind of take our 2D development and drawing and Photoshop and Illustrator and said, why can't we use that to make parts and make things better and cooler? So through his Instagram, Garrett, and watched a bunch of YouTubes, kind of turned into this 3D design and be able to print and make things and kind of push the boundaries, and that's led to machine parts off of my drawings, and it's people who I don't even know have been able to influence, kind of my process, which has been really cool.
Seeing more growth in the scene.
Yeah, and I'm always trying to push myself, so I like to see those guys pushing and giving me ideas, and hopefully I can do the same for other people. And I probably need to open up more and post more of my stuff so that other people can see all you have to do is try. You can normally figure anything out with a Google search and YouTube these days, and if not, maybe you shouldn't have figured it out.
Well, hopefully, I'll link Wes's Instagram below. Go check him out. And
yeah, it's easy. It's my name.
Hopefully, he'll push some of his new 3D stuff that he's working on a little bit.
Yeah, I sneak some kid photos in there, so you got to look past that. Yeah. Life's not all about cars,
right.
It mostly is.
So hopefully, you'll get to see some of that stuff and some of the new stuff that he's developing and working on. So,
yeah.
Dude, thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you for coming by.
Yep. I'll see you guys soon, and we'll be back, and I'll have a vlog, and my Evo's coming, and all that other stuff. So, see you soon.